And I'm Reggie.
And this is R&B Talks.
Good day to you, sir.
Good day to you as you press your tobacco for freshness.
I know. It really wasn't my intention to do this on the show today, but when I realized I really needed to do it, I'm like, well, I'll just either do it beforehand or while we're talking.
Okay.
But a noodle press is a handy little tobacco press if you don't know. And
what does it? Is it meant for noodles?
Meant for noodles.
But you use it for tobacco.
I use it for tobacco. Yeah, I don't use it for noodles.
Right on.
But the thing is, like, it's sometimes a little difficult to get off. Like now. Okay. But yeah, I use it for, see, and then I'll just push it out, and it's pretty neat because tobacco presses really aren't, you can't find them really made except for like industrial size. I mean, so for a normal guy who's just trying to do some of his own stuff, it doesn't really work out, but that's what comes out of it, right?
So you get a tobacco cork.
Looks like that, but
it looks like a tobacco cork, ladies and gentlemen.
But yeah, so this little thing is, it's like $18 off Amazon.
Listen, who knew we would be educational about the pressing and preparing and storing of tobacco?
So yeah, I put a little wax paper on both sides so it doesn't stick.
Nice.
And then it's been see, this was a lot. This was 90 grams total of tobacco. So it's 60 grams of Virginia and 30 grams of Perique. And you don't have to know what that is, but I tighten it every day.
Okay.
So usually I'll just, because it sits on my desk. So like if in the morning I go to my office, I'll pick it up and I'll give it a tighten, see if it needs any more. And I keep tightening it, and I'll know it's ready to come out when it won't tighten anymore.
That's a brick.
Oh yeah.
Like if you threw that at somebody, that would be an injury. Like that's some heavy, hard, like, yeah. I thought you were going to like just jam like a stem in it and just light it.
No, like, so this is a lot of tobacco actually. So 90 grams.
So, wow.
Tobacco.
And so the purpose of that is freshness, is what you're saying?
No, not freshness. So because it's a blend of different tobaccos, you when you press it, it actually kind of all helps blend together better. It comes out with a much more mature aroma and taste and all that kind of stuff. So it'll take a mediocre blend of tobacco and really turn it into something really good. It doesn't solve all problems or anything, but it certainly does help, certain things. And plus, like, bulk, here's the thing about tobacco, like bulk tobacco, if you just buy it, because you can buy just like not tins or bags or whatever, you can just get it bulk tobacco, and that's way cheaper than buying like a tin of tobacco or anything. So you can get a Virginia Perique blend, but it's, I don't know, $20 a tin kind of thing online, whereas I probably could have got a whole pound of tobacco for that, by bulk, and then you blend it yourself and do this. So, but yeah, it's pretty neat. And then it goes in my little jar. But yeah, so it's a little bit, I'm still learning on the stuff. I'm still trying different, I guess you'd say different mixtures and stuff to see what I prefer. But I know I'm a Virginia Perique guy, so I know that much, but I don't know what the ratio between Virginia and Perique I like. Anyway, so that's the pipe tobacco nerd stuff for today. Yeah.
I dig it, man. I learned something today. I'm going to go home and feel more educated. Onward with my journey of development.
And then you got to cut it. So that's the only.
All right. So why you just spend all the time packing it all tight into this knot, And now
because this is
going to cut
the
it.
pressure is what's going to do the work. And then now that it's done its work, you can now enjoy the. So that's why
it seems like working to undo work.
It kind of is. It kind of is.
So you like shave it off in discs?
Yeah, pretty much. See?
Okay.
Shave it off in discs.
You see, that's why I like a cigar. It's just rolled. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to pack things. You just buy the cigar. Which, by the way, I need to stop and get cigars later.
I mean, I enjoy I enjoy a good cigar, no doubt. I do.
Cigars are just easier.
They are easier, but I mean,
But this is you're how would I refer to you in this sentence? I would refer to you as a connoisseur of fine tobacco smoking pipage.
I'm just an enthusiast, dude. Like, this is stuff I like to do.
Maybe you're an enthusiastic connoisseur.
Maybe.
Dude, you know way more than most humans should know about tobacco.
That's not true. I mean, I'm not. So I've just been doing this long enough to where I've tried all kinds of stuff, and it's like it's a thing of interest that I've enjoyed for, it's one of the few things I've actually kept doing from when I was an adult, so it's kind of hard to not be at that point.
It's hard to explain.
And of course it's me too. So it's not like I can't, as soon as the internet was a thing and like people started putting out content about pipe tobaccos and stuff, I started watching it.
Reggie got hand whittled pipes by Keebler elves. I think he buys them from the magical land of Narnia, which is like 2 blocks away from Hobbiton. All right, so Reggie, how was your week?
Hold on. You would just upset 2 different subsets of nerds, dude.
Hey, I am a nerd. I love Narnia. I love The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Therefore, I am using them from my love and knowledge of them. So if they're upset, you really should take something for that. I don't see no other podcasters referencing Narnia and Hobbiton in the same sentence.
Well, I'm sure there are, but okay, look, there's one thing this week.
I think I know what you're going to say. How could I put this? Like, I was like flabbergasted.
I felt so, flabbergasted, but also just like ick and everything. When I saw this video from Mark Driscoll, who, yes, you can debate whether or not he should be a pastor or anything else like that. I get that. But the man can still speak. And he reviews and like reacts to things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was this OnlyFans girl who did this, 100 guys in a day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this OnlyFans girl, this is in London or I don't remember if it was specifically. No, I think it was London. And so she had 100 of her fans line up and, do all that in a single day. Right. And I was just, when he was so basically what Mark Driscoll was watching was almost like a documentary of that thing.
Yes.
And I'm like, how far have we, it was a loss for words.
I feel sorry for the girl, man, in the sense that she's not going to be able, if she ever decides that that's not the way she wants to go, excuse me, and she ever decides that she wants to go do something else, it's going to be impossible for her to pair bond in a healthy way with any mate anywhere. Like, she could say all she wants. It's been proven that the more sexual partners a woman has, the more difficult it becomes for her to pair bond with someone. And when you got 100 in a day, that's probably going to cause some problems.
Well, I mean, and
as far as Mark Driscoll goes, you know, there's a lot of issues I have with Mark Driscoll and the way he approaches things sometimes, but
he's not wrong here.
He's not. He's absolutely not wrong. This actually came up on my news feed. I have a news feed that I monitor and delete as I go. And when it came up, I was like, what is this about? And I look at it and I was like, this is just shameful. Like, this is shameful. Like, what are you doing? Like, where were you sitting when you were like, you know what? I'm going to have sex with 100 guys in a day. That sounds like a great idea.
But the thing is, too, is like in what he was watching, the documentary looking thing, after she had got done, right? It looked like she had just got out of the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I think Mark pointed this out. Like, I mean, if you're sexually assaulted, you normally, the first thing you do is take a shit. You're trying to cleanse yourself and your soul.
Yes.
And she was talking to the guy, and I mean, she broke down because she said this was different, right?
Yeah.
And she broke down. So obviously this was painful. And you would think that, okay, if this was a painful experience and this was like traumatic, that she would, but then you see a report of her going to do 1,000 in a 24-hour period, scheduling that for later on or something to try to break the world record. Right. And I just, so I think that's demonic, and I really do. I think that's like kind of something. You've really allowed that sort of thing to just twist your identity. And you can, Mark will say Jezebel and all this stuff. I mean, look, it doesn't really matter.
Call it what you want.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's demonic.
And I think that this is, but I think he was what I do think he was absolutely right about was the her identity, and you're only made for this kind of thing. And, you know, that's so, and this is speaking from a guy who has 2 girls. I can't fathom what I would feel like. I mean, truly. And I wonder where her father is. She's not that old, right?
I wonder, she may not have, she may not have a father.
Maybe not.
Maybe a lot of issues
part of the trauma.
Situations like that. That's part of the trauma. Like, there's no dad in the picture. I can say this, if I had a daughter and I got wind that she was going to do that, it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't allow it. There's no possible way I would allow something like that to go on.
It definitely wouldn't have my blessing. You know what I mean? I mean, there's no way. Now, if my daughter was like 30 years old and doing some kind of stupid thing, not really much I can do at that point, but, you know, I definitely wouldn't encourage it or say that that's the right thing to do. But somebody said that her parents are on her payroll for her OnlyFans stuff. So,
well, isn't that just cozy?
I don't know, man. It just illuminates the disgusting nature of some of this stuff in our culture.
Also, to me, that says there's a serious mental health issue. Like, if you're so insecure and so tied to that as your identity that you are signing up your parents on your payroll and doing all these crazy things, there's a tinge of mental instability there, if you ask me.
Well, no, I mean,
now it may not be, you know, throwing sticks of butter at people and running through the streets saying you're the, you know, king of Denmark, but it's definitely there's definitely some mental health issues there.
So she showed how much she made her first month, which was really pretty decent income.
Yeah.
Like, it's really decent. Really good. I won't say what it is here, because I mean, I don't want to encourage anybody. And then she says, here's the latest month, and she wouldn't tell him she couldn't say it out loud, but he was like, it's a shockingly large number per month that she was getting, right? So it's definitely a greed versus, moral argument.
Well,
here.
let's follow the ripple. All right. So she made, let's pick a number. Let's say she made $1 million that month. Let's say a subscriber pays $10 a month. And I'm pretty sure she probably made more than that. A lot of the OnlyFans girls make a ton of money every month.
Well, but you got to understand that Nala Ray, she was one of the highest. She was one of the top OF fans, and she wasn't doing that a month. But
that makes me question how many perverts are out there that are just,
oh, dude, here's the thing, man. And this is what the church has failed here a little bit, in that it's men have an issue, especially in this country where it's so readily available. We have an issue. And I mean, all, of overstimulation. We do. So it's terribly difficult in the U.S. to not be inundated with sexual material. Okay. And that even means for the Christian guys out there who are married and everything else, it doesn't matter. You're wired to like and intake that stuff, and therefore you are drawn to it. It doesn't matter. I've known very, 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 maybe one guy in my whole entire life that I've ever met that actually was almost like an asexual dude, where he didn't even care about anything about it. It just, no. But that's a problem in the church. And the problem is that I think this goes back to how we deal with like this legalistic stuff sometimes in the church. Like we're not gracious. We're not forgiving. We're kind of hateful. And
the church hasn't approached sex from a biblical standpoint. What they've done is they've approached sex from a shame standpoint. Well, if you're a 5-year-old kid and I tell you the delicious candy is in that drawer and I continue to leave you in this room by yourself, you're going to want to go find out what the delicious candy is.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in church. Well, no. But instead of sitting down and preparing people, like, look, here's what's out there. Like, here's what you're going to face.
Yeah.
But we have this thing where, we're very hush hush. And, there's certain, we just can't talk about that. We can't talk. Yeah. We need to talk about it. We need to get it on the table, right? Like we need to stop this petty, ridiculous game of some sins need to be discussed and some don't, and start really, this goes back to something that somebody posted this week. And I'm going to read this. But what I want you to know is I don't 100% disagree with what was said, but somebody posted, the weatherman says a storm is coming and everybody panics and gets prepared. The preacher says Jesus is coming and nobody moves. Okay. I think we have this situation in the church where we've gotten to the point of desperation where we're moving towards things that the easy kill, right? And the easy kill doesn't have to do with talking about sexual impropriety. The easy kill doesn't have to do with talking about loving your neighbor and all the things that, we'll listen to in the pulpit, but then we'll go home and tell everybody how we don't like our neighbor. And we'll tell our kids, no, don't you? I'm very honest with my sons. If they ask me a question, I will be super direct with them. Because I don't want to be the one responsible for leading them into a curiosity that becomes all consuming. Right. But in speaking to that, you're not preaching love and understanding if you're not telling people about the tripwires that are out there.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's the reality of it is like, we're just, I guess what I'm saying is like the reason why guys don't open up a lot is because we don't want any we're looking out for ourselves and retribution.
Yeah.
If you have a community that you're living life together and you tell someone, man, I can't stop looking at, sexually explicit material, then then now you've just trusted that person. Now if they go, blab around and say that you're a pervert, and
You're
everything
instantly
else.
ostracized.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and that's part of the problem here, you know. But it has to start somewhere, okay? And acknowledging that we're human and we all have things is part of it, but also too in the church, man, it's got to be a lot more loving than what we're doing. And it's not all. Let me just say this: it's not all churches. And I know I've been in some situations where it wasn't that it wasn't allowed or whatever. It was just, there's just not enough, I'd say, like grace and just covering people with the words of the gospel and of Jesus and stuff. And it just, I don't know. I guess there just needs to be more done. We're not done here. You know,
it's like I said a couple of weeks ago. I think I said this. The church should be a place where you can walk in and go, I smoked myself to sleep last night. I drank myself to sleep last night. I slept with a woman, not because I wanted the sex, but because I didn't want to be alone. I'm struggling with addiction. I'm struggling with lust. I'm struggling, but it's not a place where someone can just open up into the church family and be like, I'm struggling with this. And the whole church family puts their arms around them and helps them heal and helps them down the journey. What happens is you go into the church and you might catch one or two people in a church that might have some understanding. More than likely they've struggled with that addiction themselves, right? But the rest of the church looks at you as a threat. If you ask me, those people have more issues with their faith than the person that walked in.
Yeah. I mean, and this is where I go to where you're not going to be able to do the kind of lifting people up, doing that kind of thing unless you're actually living life together and you build up a trust between the community of believers. And that's not happening in a lot of churches, you know?
Well, but on top of that, you have to be open to the person that's not in the community yet. The person that walks in and struggling,
yeah.
Right? Like, people all the time are like, it's like I asked that old question a long time ago, and I was so shocked when I got the answer. We were having a discussion in a Bible study, and I openly asked the question. I said, well, if I had a gay son and he was getting married, should I go to the wedding? And the resounding answer was no. And I was like, that's actually wrong. I might be the only opportunity that the people there get to see the vision of a real Christian who's going to come and love people and have open discussions about how I feel about their lifestyle and maybe set an example of a tolerant, loving Christian, not tolerating their lifestyle, but hey, I don't hate you. I don't think you're a horrible human being. I think you've lost your way and there's something in you that's broken. But I'm here for you to have that discussion. It was really shocking. One person even said, well, then you're opening the door for you to be gay. Well,
how's that?
Not really sure how that works.
Okay, but I'm on the fence about that one, bro. I mean, I really am. And it's not that I don't think you're wrong. It's not, I just don't know I have no idea what I would do.
I would go and I would sit down with my son or my daughter, whichever, and I would say, look, I do not agree with your lifestyle. I do not agree with what you're doing. I don't think it's healthy, but you're my daughter or my son. I'm going to come there, but I'm going to come as me. I'm not going to come as some polite version to get through the day. I'm going to come as who I am. If an opportunity presents itself for me to have a conversation, I'm going to have it. You're going to get the truest version of me, the version you know. And
I know. And I mean,
I think it's wrong if I was to go and be like, oh, well, you're all great and we love you all and you're doing so wonderful and look at all these wonderful. No, that's the wrong way to go. But I'm not going to go in judging anybody.
No, it's not that. But I mean, like you're flaunting an abomination. That's my problem with it. It's a public display of what the Bible has dictated is an abomination.
Well, but you also have to realize too that that's where Christ was.
I get that. I'm not. That's what I was saying. I'm on the fence here because, like, on one hand, it's like if you would it's the same thing. Like, would I go into a pride parade? No. Would I be part of a pride parade? No, absolutely not.
Would I be a part of it? No.
Would I show up at one?
Would
No.
I, if I'm at one, would I be open to having conversations about the love of God and Christ? And
yeah, but I'm not going to be at one. You know, I'm just not going to. That's not where I'm going to.
Now,
be.
am I going to be the guy with the giant sign on my back and the bullhorn and acting like a jackass? No, not going to be that guy.
Either.
You know,
because I mean, at the same token, this goes. I mean, this kind of brings in like there's a veil for one for a lot of those people. They're not going to hear you. Now you can say, well, God and the Holy Spirit works through you in those situations, and I get that. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't, act accordingly to that. But if I'm not called, if I don't feel led to be in a situation like that, I won't.
Well, that rears another question then, right? The Great Commission is what we're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
We've been called. That's the call, right? Go into the world to make believers of men.
But we're all different, dude. We all go out to fulfill that call different ways.
Well, but still, does that mean we shouldn't take it upon ourselves to go make that call?
We can, but okay. So in other words, you have to weigh. This is why I'm saying it's not a yes or no answer, because I think for everybody there's a difference in what you're supposed to do. I think if your prayer life and your relationship with Christ is solid, or at least as solid as it can be, that you'll know what you're supposed to do or not, or you'll take a leap of faith based on what what you felt or not, or whatever. Right. So, I mean, one person's call to fulfill the Great Commission could be a missionary, could be go to an abortion clinic and be praying for people, could be doing all number of things, but that's not everybody. Everybody's going to do those things differently and fulfill that call to do that in different ways. This could be my way right here to do the Great Commission and to fulfill that in order to help people find their way back to the gospel and the center of the gospel, not the outskirts or nothing like that, but right at the heart of it. And then, but in some other ways, people could be a street preacher and go out there and be those guys that are on the street.
And
let's
be clear too. I'm not necessarily anti-street preaching. I'm anti-street ranting. Like when you're out there ranting and you're starting conversations with you're going to rot in hell, you're a whore, you should shut up. You're not doing anyone any good but yourself. You're only satiating your own ego at that point.
Well, I don't see the guys who are actually good at it don't do that. I mean,
well, yeah, but you and I both know a few that aren't very good at it. And, but my thing about it is, I feel like if I'm going to call myself a Christian and Christ-like, then I need to be willing to go to the places that Christ went and try to do some of the work that he did.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I'm being true to the calling, not being called, but the already existing calling, which is the Great Commission, I need to be, and you know me, Reggie, I'll talk to anybody. Like, it doesn't matter. I'll talk to a perfect stranger, and God has blessed me with tons of opportunities to have really open and honest conversations with people. Right.
Yep.
I just feel like for me personally, the best way for me to hold myself close to being Christ-like is to go to the places where he's needed most.
I get that. And all I'm saying is that that's different
for everybody. I do agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, it's
you may be fine going to a gay wedding or some sort and doing that kind of thing, but somebody else, that may cause them to, they could, they can't deal with that very well or whatever. I mean, you got to understand when you make a choice to walk into the den of sin of some sort, not nailing anything, like anything, then if you're not prepared for that, it's not a pleasant experience.
Oh, I've come out of conversations feeling battered. I've come out of them feeling good and feeling that there was good communication. I've come out of conversations feeling like I just got hit with a baseball bat. But the question I have for myself is, where's my dividing line, right? Like, and you're a great orator. Like you speak well and you're educated. And I feel like I can honestly say that the vibe I get from you is eventually you're going to wind up in front of a congregation somewhere. Now, whether that be as a minister or whether that be as a speaker, I kind of feel like that's where you're going, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was to proselytize a little bit, I feel like that's kind of where Reggie's heading.
So you're saying I need to go see the prophetess?
Yeah. The prophetess. But for me, I want to be out in the world talking to people because I feel like thumb on the pulse. Now, don't get me wrong. Like if I'm standing outside a biker bar full of Hell's Angels and there's been 2 murders in there, I'm probably going to pray outside.
But see, that's where I would go.
But that's where you would go, right? Now I'd go with you because you got my back.
Well,
I ain't going in alone.
I mean, I've known some of them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is not.
And I've known some bikers who are some hardcore Christians.
Oh, yeah, dude. There's a couple, like when I still had my bike, I really wanted to join one of the Christian biker clubs or whatever. It was really cool. Like they have like, what was it? The Disciples. It was like a global thing, and that looked really cool, except I just didn't know there wasn't a chapter. There was like bikers against child abuse. And there's a bunch of them that's really neat. It's really cool. Okay. Look, I do want to say that it's raining and our snow is melting as we speak, but it's supposed to get down to 2 tomorrow.
But there's a polar vortex coming our way.
And, I really want to get back outside. Now, my elbow is still messed up. My arm is still not correct. I was actually brushing my teeth last night, and this night, I can't remember. One of them, and it was like tinged a little bit.
Dude, how hard are you? Are you like doing like jujitsu rolls while you brush your teeth?
Yeah, that's right. I want to get everything off of these, man.
Angry toothbrush grip.
It's one of those like was it the Sonic?
Oh, Sonic hair brushes. Yeah.
And anyway, but man, she said it was going to be at least 8 weeks, bro. She said that, and I'm not
real happy about it.
No, because it's killing. For a month now, I haven't been able to like do it, and I feel it. Like I don't.
Wait till it happens though. You'll get shot out of a cannon, and you'll come back faster than you did before.
But I'm like this whole December, I felt slower. You know, and plus the sleep thing with the not being able to sleep and everything. It's just, man, I'm really looking forward to just getting back to what I was doing.
Fair enough.
And feeling the way I was feeling and making progress the way I was.
Fair enough.
You know? So anyway, but that's not really important. But the minor prophets are, and that's what we're going to talk about today, Brian.
Now, Reggie, I think we should go ahead and tell everybody the names of the minor prophets, so that there's a frame of reference. So let's talk about them. There's Micah, there's Hosea or Hosea, whatever you want to say.
Hosea.
It's okay. Jonah, Haggai, Zephaniah, Habakkuk, Joel, Obadiah, Amos, Malachi, Nahum, and Zechariah. Those are your minor prophets. So
why are they called minor prophets, Brian?
The minor prophets are a collection of 12 books in the Old Testament of the Bible. The books cover a period of about 4 centuries from the time of Jewish disobedience to God, to their return from exile in Babylon. The minor prophets' message is across the board is a basic repent and return to God, right? So the minor prophets encourage people to repent for their sins, encourage people to return to God, encourage people to have faith in God's promises, preach the word of God, and prophesied about the future. That's the minor prophets. Why were they called minor prophets? Lay it on me, Reggie.
It's really just because it's not anything about minor or major. They're just very much smaller books than the other prophetic books of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a label that we've thrown on there. It really isn't anything. Don't take into account about importance or anything like that. And I think a lot of people miss this one a little bit, because the minor prophets are, when you really dig into it, are, I mean, it's just, these are really further indications of the fulfillment of the prophetic stuff that Jesus does. Mm-hmm. And you know, even when you're talking about Jonah and the whale, especially that, Jesus references Jonah.
Yeah, which I would say that Jonah is probably the most famous of the minor prophets.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
But you have like Hosea in there, which was
Habakkuk.
Well, I think Hosea was, I'm going to get him confused now. Hosea was the guy who married the prostitute.
Well, the book of Hosea essentially is the story of a prophet called to marry a woman who would be unfaithful to him.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And basically that symbolizes God's relationship with Israel.
Yes.
So, you know.
But it's, what I'm saying is Hosea is really interesting. Like, it puts in perspective a complete, perfectly just God over everything and his relationship with an unfaithful, just people as we are. So it really helps you understand the relationship that we have with God, God has with us, right?
Yeah. Well, in Hosea 2:19 and 20, God says, I will betroth you to me forever. And I think that's kind of, not only did he mean that through the story of Hosea, but I think that was kind of a prophesying of his son dying. And when you repent, you're with me forever. I think that was sort of I don't want to say prophetic, but sort of a preview as to what the purpose of Christ's death was. Right. So,
yeah.
You know, I think Hosea kind of led the way in making people understand. The best way to say this would be, it doesn't matter how broken you are. You're a child of God, and you're always going to be a child of God, and I'm going to love you forever. It's a very good picture of being broken and in sin, yet still being washed and clean for God.
Well,
right?
And a call to repentance. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Now, one thing I will say about the 12 books of the minor prophets are called the 12. They were, they weren't really separate. They were all in one scroll.
Yeah. Originally.
Right. So think about that too. The other thing about the time period we're talking here is like, when you see these the minor prophets start the, Israel and Judah are both like, prosper. They're like really doing good. They're great prosperity is what kind of you could think of there. But by the end of it, they're like they're gone. I mean, so because what I mean by that is, and I'll reference some of this, is like some of these minor prophets predicted the fall of Samaria, Jerusalem, to the Assyrians and Babylonians, the fall of Assyria and Babylon. And then they predicting the restoration of Judah. And also too, you had the Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi were post-exilic prophets, meaning it was a post-exile for the people, right? Mm-hmm. And they were preaching and stuff about who returned to Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a really interesting time when you have God puts these people in place. And remember, this is BC here. We're not talking about a time when it was largely literate, when there was, the mail service and, you had podcasts and all. No, I mean, like, these people were God would give them a voice to say, hey, if you don't do this, this will happen. Yeah. So, these prophets told as much as they could. They were like, hey, Judah's going to fall. The Syrians are going to do this. The Babylonians are blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's what they did right? Throughout this whole book of the 12. And of course, it kind of reflects a lot of like what happens to Israel during the time of the judges. Because what happened in there is it's very much a repeat. Like Israel would would stray from God, start doing some stuff, he'd send a judge. The judge would kind of right the ship, and Israel would come back to God, and then they would fall. Then the guy would be like, "Here's a judge," and the judge. It's just, it's the same story over and over again in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Where we just keep falling because we cannot seem to control ourselves. So anyway, so Hosea is good. That was Hosea was 755 to 720 BC. Like you said, it was there was unfaithfulness, judgment to salvation for people. He talked about Israel's rebellion. Joel is another one. Let's see. Nothing is known today of the prophet Joel except that he was the son of Pethuel. So that I think you got to note that a little bit, because there's a bunch of these like we know a lot of.
Yeah.
Some of them we don't know too much about.
Well, Joel talked a lot about a time of restoration and future outpouring of God's Spirit. Like he talked about, I will pour, Joel 2:28. I will pour my Spirit out on all people. Right? Like there's a definite kind of active look at what the Holy Spirit in activity can do, right? Like moving through your life, like moving through you. And his prophecy also points to Jesus coming and the salvation and the new life and all the things that were involved. I mean, he's very much, okay, so here's one of the things that I like about the 12 minor prophets. There is a lot of, if you read the 12 minor prophets, if you read those books, they do a really good job of depicting the coming of Christ in the sense of forewarnings in every book about, salvation and the promises made. And the promises fulfilled in the New Testament from Joel, right? Like so you're seeing a lot of, I don't want to say forewarning because I don't feel like they're warning people. I feel like it's just prophecy. He's coming.
Well, Joel's reference, what he said was the day of the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was a prominent motif in the Old Testament, right? And it refers to the day of battle when Yahweh would dramatically intervene on earth to accomplish his work of both judgment and salvation.
Yes.
So that's what he's talking about there. Joel had did it have the locusts? I think it was the locusts, right? The locust plagues and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spoke
of the locust plagues symbolizing God's judgment.
There you go. So, I mean, so that's what he referenced a lot about repent, imminent, look forward to the day of the Lord kind of stuff. Was Joel. Amos, let's see, he was around 792 to 740 BC. And
calls out the people of Israel for their lack of justice, for their poor care for the poor.
Yeah.
Amos 5:24, God declares, let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never failing stream. Which again foreshadows the ministry of Jesus, right? Like it talks about he who came to bring true justice and offer his righteousness to those who believe in him. Jesus not only cared for the marginalized, but also fulfilled the law, providing a way for us to live in true righteousness through him, right?
You see this also the reflection of like they were doing economically really, really well, and that kind of brought apathy and apathy
and corruption.
Yeah, and moral decline. So I mean, there's an example. There's kind of a look at that and saying, "Oh, that kind of reflects what we're in right now."
Yeah,
for sure. He had 3 sermons about the coming judgment. There were 8 oracles of judgment against the nations that he gave, 5 visions of Israel's coming judgment, 5 promises of Israel's restoration. So there's a bunch of these numbered things. Now, there's significance in numbers in the biblical text, and and actually in our whole existence. You can dig into that if you want to, because that's a whole thing about why 5, why 8, why this. There's numbers reflected all throughout stuff, and they're it's kind of interesting if you dig into that a little bit. That's not for here or there, but anyway, Obadiah is the shortest book in the Old Testament. It's really short.
Prophesies the downfall of Edom, which was Israel's enemy, and points to a future where the kingdom belongs to the Lord. Obadiah 121 points forward to the ultimate victory of Jesus, whose kingdom will be established forever and ever.
Yeah, it was around 840 to 830 BC, by the way, is what all this was. So there's some scholars who place the time of the time of Obadiah at the Edom's revolt against Judah in the early part of the 9th century BC, which is what we kind of said. You got to understand there was Judah and Israel, by the way. There were two different entities, just so we're aware. It is just, there's doom for Edom and there's deliverance of Judah. That's really what he's talking about. You can dig into that if you want to. Then we have Jonah, which is probably not everybody, but people know Jonah just because of the, swallowed by a great, sea monster.
Well, I think that Jonah hits home for me because God found me on the road I was using to avoid him. He saved me there, right? And I think he did the same thing for Jonah. Jonah was doing all he could not to do what God called him to do.
Yeah.
And then he got swallowed by a whale, and then he survived, and God spared him and showed him mercy. And
they called it, okay, so here's the thing about the whale. It's not necessarily a whale.
Okay, lay it on.
There's a pretty significant debate about what actually this was, because Leviathan is kind of referenced in ancient texts and stuff. They say it probably might have been a whale. It could have been this, could have that. But honestly, though, about the time period, it's kind of hard to say what that could have been. It could have been some kind of other ancient creature that was huge and.
Well, I mean, the Bible refers to giants and monsters a lot, right?
I know,
it's not, and this is part of why I'm really into the Nephilim and all those things right now, because the Bible references quite a bit these giants and creatures, and so you're right. It could have been like a giant octopus or something. Who knows? Well,
I mean, just there's so many things, and I know if you look at the different creation versus evolution versus intelligent design evolution versus theistic this and that, all these things. I mean, there's a lot of data that people are trying to sift through and a lot of information that they come up with different answers about things. So if one side or the other, or it depends on the different discipline or philosophical or biblical principles you follow, it could have been a very much a dinosaur type of creature.
Yep.
that swallowed Jonah. Now, I'm not getting into whether or not that's true or not or whatever. I'm just saying that's another theory and possibility.
It was a Sebasaurus Rex.
Yeah. So just say, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to look at that kind of stuff, but I haven't, I'm by far not a creation or a biological evolutionist or anything like that. I haven't made any declarations, only that I do tend towards a younger Earth than an older Earth and an older universe, because I think that just makes kind of more sense with the way everything is. But I'm not one of those guys who really going to argue about any of that, because I really don't. It's not really my expertise. Yeah. Anyway, Jonah though is actually impactful. I think it is one of those things where even Jesus calls back to the story of Jonah, and so if Jesus is going to reference Jonah, we all should probably know Jonah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of a big thing. And then we have Micah.
Now Micah's cool because Micah actually prophesied the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. Like he got right down to the nitty gritty of where was he going to be born. All these details started really kind of coming in with Micah, right? And it's his prophetic vision was actually fully realized.
There's no deviation.
Yeah, which I find amazing that he was given the gift of prophecy and used it to literally like Miss Cleo, Jesus' arrival, right? Like
Miss Cleo,
Miss
really?
Cleo, Jesus' arrival. That's what I'm talking about. You remember? Have you ever seen the documentary about Miss Cleo? Apparently, she was into some janky stuff.
Oh, I'm sure of that, dude. You'd have to in order to be into that.
That's off the point of the Minor Prophets, but I watched that documentary and it was quite interesting. But
he was a contemporary of the prophet Isaiah, too. So I mean, that's kind of cool. It was in the time 740 to 689 BC, about the time of this stuff. So that's interesting.
It also he also really prophesied a lot about God's mercy, to live justly, to walk humbly. He was really a kind of a if you ever wanted to hold up like a mirror reflection of a man of God, I think Micah was there, right? Like he knew and understood what God wanted from him and really tried to live it.
He spoke about social injustice too. Not how we see that stuff. This is in comparative to that time period. That was some good observations in what he suggested there. And then we have the book of Nahum.
Now, how do you say it? Is it Nahum or Nahum? I've heard it said both ways. I've always said Nahum.
I forgot. It's one of those things where you like, when I was in school, you would go through this stuff and they would say it and you'd write it down, you'd do all that, but no, it's gone. It's gone.
Nahum.
I don't know what it is.
All right. Well, Nahum focused on the judgment of Nineveh and the fall of Assyria. And Assyria was a very oppressive empire. It's a very powerful but oppressive empire. And the gospel reveals that through Jesus, Satan and sin have been defeated. In Colossians, it tells us that Jesus disarmed the powers and authorities, though his death and resurrection giving us victory over sin and eternal hope. Nahum was kind of a teller of tragedy to come and how it would kind of reflect against Jesus's justice, right?
Yeah, the fall of the Egyptian city Thebes occurred in 663 BC. Nineveh fell to the Babylonians in 612 BC. So he delivered the message. Nahum delivered the message sometime between 663 and 612 BC. Right. So that's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Really about Nineveh the destruction of Nineveh. How decreed, described, and defended pretty much is what. By the way, what where this is the textbook I actually studied when I was in school, and this is hold on, let me see. This is, I'll tell you the book. It's Hindson and Towns Illustrated Bible Survey. So just in case you don't know, that's where I got all my information from. Not. Yes, there's way more written about this stuff, by the way, in case you want to know. There's many, there's a lot of scholarship around the prophets. I just didn't have time to reference everything. This is a good overview, so I figured I'd just use it as material here. So after Nahum, we have Habakkuk.
He was the one that questioned, God allowing injustice, right? He was the one that, why did God allow injustice and suffering? Which I feel like is a great, when somebody asks me the age old question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Habakkuk would be a great place to send him. He's,
in Job.
The message of Habakkuk encourages us to trust in God's plan, even when we don't understand it, knowing that Jesus is our ultimate hope.
Yeah.
I think,
faith, really.
It's a book about deep-rooted faith. It's the best way to say it.
It was, Habakkuk was about 620 to 605 BC. Into the 7th century BC, the Babylonians replaced the Assyrians as the dominant power in the ancient Near East. So that's all about the time we're talking about here. but yeah, he's all about faith. Back it's pretty cool. And it is about, why punishment, why this, why that. There's a lot of good stuff in there about just why that happens. Zephaniah, 630 to 625 BC. I will say that there's a lot of these that I can't remember who knew each other, but they're like, I think Habakkuk and Zephaniah, Jeremiah, Daniel, and Ezekiel, I think they all knew each other. If I'm not, I'll clarify that. Sorry. That's not I just kind of remember that. Don't know. Just take that for what it is. A royal, not a royal, but a educated remembrance that might be false.
Well, Zephaniah talks a lot about the balance of the day of God's judgment versus the day of redemption for believers, right? Like he talks a lot about God's love and about God's wrath. I thought that was pretty interesting. But Christ's salvation wins and gives eternal life, essentially, is what Zephaniah is about.
Well, he also spoke to the judgment of Judah, but he also then applied that to the nations, meaning everybody.
Everybody.
And then, he also spoke about the salvation in the day of the Lord, again, using that motif, right? So more information there. And then we have Haggai.
Okay, so Haggai is the one that wanted that after they came back after God's people, after the people of Israel to rebuild the temple after returning from exile. Like that was a symbol of God's presence within the people, right? Like, this is my temple. Jesus has made a way for us as God's temple. Where's the Spirit dwells is within us, right? So 1 Corinthians 3:16, right? There's a direct line here of the story of the redemption of God's people from exile, which is a very interesting thing for me. I'm very, one of the things that kind of opened up for me when I was just reading and pulling up the information, and the 12 prophets, even though they're 12 individual stories, they really tell one complete story. If you read through them, they actually tell one complete story.
Yeah.
Which may have been, I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that they were
in one scroll
or not. But if you read the 12 books, they actually, even though each one of them kind of nails a different point prophecy wise and things like that, it tells one complete story, which is really cool. Just wanted to put that out there. That's if you want a reason to read them, it's actually one really complete story. So
yeah. So Haggai, like you said, was post-exilic community. So, the post-exile people.
Yep.
520 BC, around that area. Very cool. And he was like, he wanted to rebuild.
Yes.
That's really what it was about. And he had a bunch of, without getting really way into that. And then we have Zechariah, which it's not pulling up for me. Why not? What about Zechariah, Brian?
The coming king, right? Zechariah is filled with prophecies about the coming Messiah. Zechariah 9:9, he foretells the coming of a king, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey. Zechariah also speaks of a time when God will pour out his spirit and his people will look on the one they have pierced, pointing to the crucifixion of Christ.
Yeah, Zechariah is one of those where like he is very much clearly calling for Christ.
Yep.
And the way Christ came, the way Christ died, he really it's a really brilliant foretelling of that. Now, the thing is, I wondered this too, because, you're talking 500 BC here, right? So you got 500 years between when Zacharias telling everybody this and then that. I mean, that's an awful long time because he would never be vindicated in his lifetime, right? I mean, you're talking about it's hundreds of years later when he's finally realizes, oh, he was right.
Yep.
And I thought about that. I mean, like, what purpose would that serve other than us today to look back and go, holy crap, that was 500 years before and somebody told about it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's stuff like that. Just think about that. Zechariah himself was an instrument of God to declare what was going to happen 500 years later. Zechariah could not have been looked at because he's talking about stuff way in the future that he has no idea about. So, you know, if you think about it, and not that it's like today, but like, you know, we look back at our history books, and if it's not correct or whatever, then we're like, you know, it's easy for us to flaunt it off. But like, this is clear that, you know, God worked this.
There was clear prophecy that was fulfilled, and there was clearly a presence of God to push this prophecy forward so that it would be fulfilled. I mean, you look at some of the minor prophets, they are dead on the money.
Yeah.
Like, it's not maybe sort of within this time frame. It's like, bam, Bethlehem, bam, riding a donkey, bam, like hitting it from all sides. That's what I really like about these books is it's.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing, though, to say, like, you know, during these times when you had, like, even some of Daniel and Ezekiel, Isaiah and all these prophets and stuff where they were like, they would tell things about what was going to happen. And it's like, you know, hundreds of years, even 1,000 years before any of that's going to be realized. And you got to look back on it and say the purpose of that was so us today would have an indication that the biblical story, the meta narrative of the Bible is complete.
Yeah.
And it's sufficient. And it includes this stuff to make sure that it is.
You know, it's interesting
accurate.
that you say that this actually too, the 12 prophets actually do a really great job of helping you not worry about the books that weren't included. There's a whole lot of people that are worried about the books that weren't included. If you read the 12 minor prophets, you understand clearly they weren't really needed. The books that they needed were put there, right? Like it was complete.
Yeah. And so I just find it amazing that you had these things and the amount of time that spans between when they first give these prophetic announcements out and then, you know, and you see it be fulfilled so many years later. It's uncanny. I mean, is there debate about the authenticity of the minor prophets? No, not really. It's kind of agreed to that. There is some discussion, but I won't get into all that too, but it's not, we look at these books as pretty much what they say. I will say with Zechariah, so here's a few of the messianic prophecies, right? A branch which sprouts from the Davidic line of kings, the king priest who combines both offices in one person, the lowly king who rides into Jerusalem on a donkey, one who is betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, one who is pierced in crucifixion, the good shepherd who is smitten, one who opens a fountain of cleansing for the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the one who is Yahweh himself, God who comes to split the Mount of Olives and defend Jerusalem, the king who rules the holy city of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty cool. So, you know, he was dead on it. Then we have Malachi. That was 435 to 430 BC.
Malachi speaks of a messenger who will prepare the way for the Lord. The prophecy points directly to John the Baptist, who came to prepare the way for Jesus. Malachi 3:1, Mark 1:2 and 3. Malachi also speaks of a time when the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings, a picture of the healing and salvation that Jesus brings to those who believe in him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of that. He talks about worship, divorce, justice, tithing, and rewards. Again, calls to the messenger. It pronounces that. Let's see. What was that? Yeah. the Lord promised he would send the prophet Elijah prior to the future day of the Lord to restore his people. And this promise clarifies and expands on the earlier prophecy that the Lord would send his messenger to prepare for his coming.
Yes.
So, yeah, very, very cool.
Those, sir, are the 12 minor prophets.
Indeed. And I mean, it's worth reading, and it's worth going back through and doing a little bit of, study into the minor prophets. It's very illuminating. It helps kind of wrap things up from a perspective of the prophetic messages into Christ, the time of Christ, Mm-hmm. There's also too, I think the way that they, and look, you got to know a little bit about Hebrew and stuff like that in order to really get into the nuts and bolts of things. But it's very cool, and it does. I think it's worth looking into. I guess that's my whole point here. So the minor prophets. Anything else on the minor prophets?
No,
there, buddy.
But something popped up in my feed while we were talking. Kind of talks about what we were talking about earlier. A lot of people, and I've gotten a lot of grief from people that I know about, this non-denominational stance that I've taken, and like you and I were talking about today, the flaws in the church. But this popped up in my feed, and this is John MacArthur, according to my feed. And I'll take that for what you want. Who knows if whatever's in a feed is accurate, but it came up as John MacArthur. And it says, Satan is not fighting churches. He's joining them. He does more harm by sowing tares than by pulling up wheat. He accomplishes more by imitation than by outright opposition.
Yeah.
Guys, if I could encourage you to do anything, and the minor prophets are amazing. It still amazes me. Reggie and I have been doing this now for a while, and I walk away from every episode to study something because I feel like I need to learn more. But I think we need to sow a word of encouragement today, and that word of encouragement is going to be the antithesis of what you normally hear from people of the church, and that's get out of your own head, right? Stop listening to the people that are telling you about the casting of judgment. Start listening to the Bible that tells you there are broken people who need God's grace, and start opening yourself up to being the grace for those people, right? When you see somebody walk in the church, don't be afraid to talk to them about whatever the sin is that brought them in. Because let's be clear, we all sin to a point where it's a zero-sum game for us now. Like, we got to do something about it. We all feel the heart-shaped hole or the God-shaped hole in our lives eventually, right? I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. Eventually, you're going to feel the God-shaped hole. You may not recognize what it is, but you're going to know it's there. And they need honest conversation about sexual sin, addiction, gambling, whatever that sin is that they're engrossed in. Be the sounding board for them to be open about their sin, and then be open to talking to them about the fact that focus on God and focus on loving God and letting God love you, and stop scaring people. Stop telling everybody the end is coming. Stop telling everybody, oh, you better repent because the end is coming. I've never made anybody love God with fear. Now, I fear God because I understand that he is a righteous God, but he's also a jealous God. I understand that. But that fear comes from me reading the Bible and me coming to understand my Savior. That doesn't come from the guy at church who's telling me if you don't repent, you're going to burn in hell. That's not where that fear, healthy fear, comes from. That creates unhealthy fear. Well, why would I want to go to a church where if I do anything wrong, I'm going to rot in hell, right? Like, so my encouragement would be, don't be the wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't do it. Be the shepherd, right? And when that wayward one comes in, shepherd them.
I don't disagree, but I would say the fear of the Lord is probably the only fear that is
Well, no, trust me, I fear God.
I know, but
but I don't think that's the first thing you want to talk to somebody about.
No, but there could be though.
It could be, but
you could, I mean, because you got to understand, we have a culture here that is not really afraid of anything.
Yeah, but think about this. All right. And the reason I say this is I come from a family riddled with addiction. The devil's got hold of you, whatever your addiction is. Let's say your addiction is drugs. You're in physical pain. You're spiritually lost. You're fearful of what's going to happen if you don't have drugs because you know what happens when withdrawal sets in. You don't have really control of yourself physically because you've given into your addiction. And you walk into a church and the first conversation you have is, yeah, if you don't stop, you're going to hell.
That's
you know
not
what I'm saying?
but that's not
I
what
agree
I
with
mean.
what you're saying. Is that there are some conversations where you need to really talk about you need to be fearful of God. This is you might be crossing a line.
There's a lot of tough guys out there that need to hear that.
But what I'm talking about
that's not
is
the first thing you open up with.
The lost. Like I'm lost mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I don't know what to do. Like I said, I smoked myself to sleep. I drank myself to sleep. I shot myself up. Whatever you're doing, whatever we're watching, get to that person and say, it's okay. You're here. This is step one, right?
Well,
you showed up. And just like I tell people in the fitness industry, everybody goes, what is the number one thing I can do to get fit? Show up.
Show up. Show enough.
Just show up.
But
right? And what I'm saying is show up for those people.
Yeah. And I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I can't stress enough, though, how we should treat them all the same. You are not sinless.
No one is.
No one is.
No person is sinless.
And regardless of what it is, you can't look at a thief different from some dude who had an affair
or a liar,
a prostitute versus this or that.
There is no, we are the ones that create tiers of sin.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
We are the ones that say that one sin is worse than the next,
and I get that there's language in the biblical narrative that is different for some things, but
it is all sin.
Yeah. We all fall short. And I think that's the key when it comes to talking with people who are looking for answers. And it doesn't really matter what their lifestyle choice is. You got to just approach it with the same way you would any other one. We go to prisons to minister to them. There's some sin that is legal.
Yeah, there's some sin that is illegal.
If you're going to go to a prison and minister to people who have committed what we would say are heinous things, God doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, he doesn't.
And so, we got to approach it the same way, and we can't sit there and snub our nose at stuff and look at people different ways. And I mean, look, much grace is given, therefore you should give grace.
Yes.
Think back
to what you were before you found God, and tell me that if you truly have a heart for Christ, that you're not ashamed of that person.
But
right, and use that as your frame of reference when you're speaking to someone else. Right, nothing tickles me more than somebody, and I know several of them, that they were just heathens, and then they became Christians, and boy, they are the most self-righteous, unkind. I can't even believe it sometimes when I hear some of the things that they say.
But also, too, if the people who've grown up in the church haven't never left the church and all this kind of stuff, you are not sinless.
Absolutely not.
And I mean, this is where you got to look at Christ's perspective on sin. It's not that you murdered someone; it's that you had anger in your heart.
Yeah, it's not that you had an affair; it's that you lusted in your heart, right? I know a lot of guys that'll justify watching X-rated material by saying, well, I'm not touching a girl, or I'm not. Yeah, dude, it doesn't matter. If it's in your mind to do it, you're doing it. Like in God's eyes, if you're thinking about, subscribing to OnlyFans so that you can watch chicks do nasty things, and even if you never do it, you're still thinking about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just think we gotta be real here, man. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We live in a culture where we're built in social media full of lies because we're portraying something we're not all the time. Not all of us. I'm just saying a vast majority of people are online spewing these doctored up photos and my life.
Well, it's like the lady in Europe that
hashtag.
Did you hear
blessed.
the lady in Europe that got jacked for $800,000 because she legitimately thought she was dating Brad Pitt and he needed a kidney transplant and he bilked her for $800,000? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like all that glimmers is not gold.
No, I'm just saying, like reject the false identity that the world wants you to illuminate and fulfill your identity as a child of God.
That's right. That's right.
That's it. That's really it. Okay. One last thing. I don't Facebook surf really. I get notifications. I go check them out. I do post things every once in a while when I just feel like getting abused or something.
You give as good as you get, Reggie. It's okay.
I know. I do. I really like to argue. But I did see something in my feed the other day when I was checking my notifications. I flipped through a little bit, and it was another propagandist thing. And it was I don't know how long I had several flips of the screen. And it was all these characteristics of this is why we think you're stupid if you're a mega person, right? And it had all these things about what Trump's done. And it had a description of it, then an article, right? A huge list of things. And so I shook my head because and I don't even remember where, I couldn't even find it the other day again because I was going to actually look at some of these things, but all the links when I was looking at it were very left-wing things about stuff that Trump had done or whatever. And it was all, but what I guess what I wanted to say here is if you haven't understood where the major mainstream media lands and why that is illegitimate in how they report things, I don't have anything for you.
I can't fix you.
I can't.
I can't fix you, bro.
There's no arguing this or anything. If you really want to go down here and
if you really want to have this argument, I can't fix you.
Yeah, because you're going to say, well, it's professional journalism. I choose to, but it's not. How you don't have to go look very far. And we've talked about this before to see where the money comes from and what agenda they have.
Yes.
And see why they're reporting the way they are. And you have a very small number of very major media companies that own 90% of the freaking media in the world. I don't understand. It's just such a stupid, they call them the stupid mega supporters because of all these, well, he's done this, he's done this. Where's the investigation into Joe Biden? Where's your information for there? Where's Bill Clinton's
Here's
repertoire?
What you're seeing, Reggie, and I believe this truthfully. I believe that the woke machine is breaking down.
That's terrible, dude.
I believe what you're seeing is the last gasp of a whole lot of people that have realized that they're disillusioned. Let me be clear. They know they're wrong, but because they have invested so much of themselves in that ideology, they are desperately clinging to it in some awkward hope. So they post stuff like, here's 20 reasons why MAGA is Nazis and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, and I'm like, but Rob Schneider said it best. He was on Jordan Peterson and I loved what he said. He goes, we used to say that Nazis were Jew-hating warmongers. Now, if you park your Tesla in the wrong spot in the parking lot, you're a Nazi. He's like, he's like, the woke machine is just crumbling, and they don't, and with every passing day, there's less grip for them to hang on to. And so they're literally just, I mean, because it's coming into my feed too. Dude, I have the most right-wing feed you would ever see on Facebook, but they still shoot these Joy Reid videos and these videos of, well, maybe this is an alternative. No, this is a freaking crazy person talking crazy. Like, Joy Reid is honestly legitimately probably the most dishonest operator of all of them, because she literally will tell just blatant outright lies that
not even close.
They're not even within the range of the truth. And there are still woke people who cling to that, even though it's dead.
Yeah.
It's a dead media. They just said the other day, CNN, MSNBC have the lowest ratings in their history right now, because people are just worn out with it. Like, you've worn us out. Your baby murdering, transphobing, fear mongering horse manure is just over.
Well, no one's buying MSNBC.
No.
Why is anybody buying it? It's for sale.
Yeah, because they're all dishonest players and they're all under contract. So if you buy them, you're buying their contract.
Yeah, nobody wants.
So there's been conservative news media outlets that wanted to buy MSNBC, but because they would have to take the dishonest players that work there, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So, okay, we talked about when we did our look, if you haven't watched it, just watch it. There's this method on social media. I just want everybody to understand this. From when you see something that is from a source, well, I shouldn't say a source, it's a content, right? And it's just vastly long. That's a propaganda tool. The length of that dissuades you from looking at what it is, because you look at that and say, wow, that's a lot. I'm not going to read all that. I don't have time for that. And then that's actually a propagandist tool. I don't remember which propaganda term that is. It's the same thing I see all the time, though, from intellectual left. They will try to inundate someone with all of this stuff, and they know you're not going to go look at everything. No one is. Now, some content creators actually do, like, that's their whole gig, is to go find these things and like research everything and come back with it. I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. Maybe one day it might be fun to just sit there and go, okay, we tore down this post for you to that could be fun. But anyway, I just wanted to, and I know this guy, and he's always been a left-wing guy. I don't really know him that well enough to. This is another thing. If I don't know you that well, I'm probably not going to stomp on your post either, because I mean, you don't know really who I am or how I am. You just know me vaguely by, especially in the music circle, right? I mean, if somebody knows me just from drumming and stuff from years ago, they're not going to know anything about, because we never really get into any of that in the music realm. But
no.
Anyway, I just thought I see a lot of these. It's pretty. It's just silly. I just want to tell people that don't be discouraged or swayed because of a long string of text that it's on purpose. And
it's on purpose. Yeah. It's meant to derail you.
It's meant to take up your time. It's meant to distract you from something else. It's still propaganda. And it's absurd if whoever forwards it and posts it, shame on you, because it's not true. Anyway, not that I'm a whole Trump cheerleader or anything. I really am not. He was a better choice than the other.
That's really what it boils down to. He was a better choice than the other.
Now, I do think that, I mean, it's going to look. We got Monday.
Although Pete Hegseth. Did you watch his?
Yeah, he laid it down, didn't he?
He really did a great job.
I think
not even the fact that he put the smackdown on all of them, but he was calm. He never got wrapped up in the attacks. He showed what a true leader and a true.
I think what he said, though, what I really liked a lot was when he said, he wants to bring back a warrior culture.
Yeah.
Well, it's the military. Why don't you?
Yeah. Why don't we have a warrior culture? Right?
I mean, not, and I don't, that could carry all kinds of meaning to it, but there's a reasons why there's historically, when you see military might, there's a certain, attitude and stuff that goes along with it. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. I think the guy's too good looking for me though.
I don't care, man.
I do. I don't think he's too good looking. He needs to have more scars.
I'd like to put him and Gavin Newsom in a cage.
Oh God,
and let them go to war.
No, I think Gavin Newsom's already on his way out, bro. So it doesn't matter. Those wildfires are okay. We talked about this last week. What's that lady who's the chief? Fire chief.
I don't know.
Oh my!
I know the mayor's Karen Bass.
But when she said, "Can I lift get my husband out of there?" And
if your husband's inside the building that's burning, he's in the wrong place. Made a mistake. He's in the wrong place. That makes you stupid. You're a firefighter. That's not your discernment to make. Your job is to show up and rescue that person. And if you're not doing that, get the hell off the firefighting force.
I don't know, brother. I was just like, what?
Sorry, man. That doesn't make any sense.
What?
If I show up, would you go let your husband burn? Because he was a dummy. No, you don't know how that fire started. You don't know what happened for him to be trapped in there. That was one of the most ignorant things I've ever heard someone say in my life.
And it's been repeated now over and over and over again, but it's just, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, what? Why would you, what makes you say that? That's just what a way to fight an argument there with idiocy. But anyway, look, I hope you enjoyed today's show. The minor prophets are pretty cool. And it does help bring some attention to something that doesn't get enough attention.
One quick request of our listeners. Reggie brought to my attention that someone I will not name decided to make a comment on one of our channels. If you're going to attack me or my partner here, be intelligent enough when you say something like you guys are dangerous to actually put some context in what that means. If you watch our episode and you think that something we say is dangerous or has malice, please, before you get on and go, blah, 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 you're dangerous, put some context to it, because I'm going to say something that's going to sound really harsh. But when you try to attack me or my partner here with zero context, the only person that looks stupid is you.
Yep.
Because you're not really attempting to have an argument. You're attempting to be a troll.
Well, yeah, but and at the end of the day, let me make this clear. I don't care.
Well, and here's the thing too. And just so you know, Reggie, I didn't tell you this, but before I responded, I edited that post like 11 times.
I'm sure you did.
There were some things that I said in it originally that were awful. And I backed up and rewrote and backed up and rewrote and backed up and rewrote. And finally I came up with the version I came up with. If you don't like us, don't listen. Look, man, you're grown adults. You don't have to listen to us. And if you're tuning in to listen to us just to find things to troll us about, you need to get control of your life.
Well, just have something better to say, I guess.
Give me some context.
But also too, I'd just say, I don't care.
We are free thinking, masculine men who live our lives by biblical principles. We raise our families by biblical principles. We do not apologize for that. I never will. You might hate me, but you'll never hear me apologize for taking a stand for what I absolutely believe that is in my DNA and I'm built to do. And if you don't like it, I'm not upset and I don't care. Just shut up and stop listening.
Well, comment all you want.
Or comment with something I said.
Comment is what, but honestly, they can comment whatever you want. Here's the deal. You can comment whatever you want. Really.
If you want a telligible response, you're going to have to give us context.
But just it's okay. I don't care. You can comment all kinds of things. Feel free.
We do live in America.
Utilize the comment section at your discretion. The only time it will get pulled down is if it's inappropriate or something like that or whatever. We don't want to let that. We're gonna police that a little bit.
Yeah.
But look, if you whatever stupid thing you want to say, go ahead. But stupid questions get stupid answers. So just so you're aware.
Or they get sharp answers. And I didn't answer meanly, but I answered sharply.
Anyway, if you have any topic suggestions, let us know. For those that are listening via the podcast, thank you very much. we have quite a few downloads and stuff on.
We do. We really appreciate the people that listen. We really do.
We're still. We have a lot of plans for this year that we're still trying to formulate and manifest. So, with that said, be looking out for the next one. And that's all for today. For R&B Talks.
I'm Brian.
I'm Reggie.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.